Hey everybody, Jeff Ritter here, co-author of the 5 Must-Dos to Grow Your Business Deep into the Black. And what I'd like to accomplish here today with this little mini audio file is to share with you a topic that's really made a big difference in my success, and that's the idea of creating leverage. Like many people, I grew up on Golf Digest magazine. I enjoyed watching people like Bob Toski, Jim Flick, Peter Kostis. And it was really interesting to see how, if you were in the magazine, what that meant to your career, the perception of you as a coach, your ability to generate income, your ability to generate traction within the industry. So very early in my coaching career, I made a commitment to send 40 tip ideas up to Golf Digest headquarters in Connecticut. And I was very persistent. I emailed often. I let them know that I had a strong desire to be in the magazine. And what happened over time is, due to my persistence, I was very fortunate to the point where Golf Digest actually selected one tip that appeared in the April 2000 issue. And of course, it wasn't a multi-page feature. It was one tip. It was at the back of the magazine. But for me, it was a really huge milestone, just being in Golf Digest and knowing what that could mean to my career, not only then, but also in the future. Well, a cool thing happened is not too long after that, I ran across the editor for Golf Tips magazine out of Los Angeles. And of course, he asked me, being that I was a coach, he said, "Hey, have you ever done any golf writing before?" And of course, I proudly proclaimed, "Oh, I was just in Golf Digest magazine." Well, what he did is he said, "Why don't you go ahead and send me a tip, and we'll see if something can work here as well." Well, I went home, and I looked over all my tips, and I was really trying hard to figure out which tip was going to be the most effective, which one was the best, which one was going to get in the magazine. And I just couldn't decide on which one I wanted to send. So in a bold move, I actually sent all 39 tips that Golf Digest had rejected to Golf Tips magazine. Well, a couple of days later, the editor contacted me, and he said, "These are great, we'll take them all." So there I was, 39 tips, getting ready to go ahead and go out in Golf Tips magazine. We shot a lot of stories, did a lot of great photography, and every single month I was positioned in that magazine. And it was a great thing for me. Over time, they named me senior editor of Golf Tips magazine, and I had written in Golf Digest. But what I realized is now I had leverage. And leverage to me was all about being able to do more things in the industry from a media-based perspective based on this one little tip that I had in Golf Digest. So I was at Barnes & Noble one day, and I came across a magazine called Golf Punk magazine. And Golf Punk is no longer available in the United States and not even overseas. But at the time, it was really cool to me because it represented a shift in the way that golf instruction was being written about. It was almost like Maxim meets Golf Digest. It was really flashy, it was cool, it was young, it was hip. I absolutely loved it. And as I went through the magazine, I went to the back end of the magazine, and I realized that the coaching I thought could be a little bit better. So what I did is I went to the front of the magazine, and I actually looked for the editor's name and his email address. And I crafted an email, and I said, "This is who I am. I'm a golf coach in America. I write for Golf Digest and Golf Tips magazine. I've got some ideas that I think can really help you enhance the quality of your magazine over there in the UK." Well, the very next day, I got a phone call from England, and the gentleman asked what my ideas were. We talked a little bit, and sure enough, they asked that I start writing magazine articles over there as well. Well, Golf Punk magazine hit the UK, Germany, France, Spain, and Indonesia, and I had one article per month in Golf Punk magazine. Well, as my relationship with Golf Punk grew a little bit, they asked me to write a second column, and what they wanted to do was something that was a little bit more unique. So one of the things about my coaching career that I really like is the inspirational element or component that is attached to achieving things in golf or sport or life in general. So I started writing these one-page stories, which were all about life lessons as they relate to the game of golf. I got a monthly column, so now I had 2 stories a month in Golf Punk magazine. And I was doing more stuff for Golf Tips and also for the local papers, and magazines from all over the country started seeing my work. And instead of me contacting them, they were actually contacting me, asking that I contribute to their magazines. And again, think about it. All of this started from one tip in Golf Digest, being leveraged into multiple tips in Golf Tips magazine, that were then leveraged into a monthly story in a magazine that was hitting much of Europe and parts of Asia. Well, the cool thing about these golf punk stories is that I now had an art team that was actually creating images that went along with these little life lessons. And that was really cool because, of course, I didn't have the resources to pay on my own for this type of service. And I started thinking to myself, wow, you know what? If I possibly had more of these stories that fit together more cohesively, then maybe they could be turned into a life lessons book. So I started searching for a publisher, and lo and behold, I found one through a client of mine. And we decided to go ahead and publish my book, Your Kid Ate a Divot, 18 Life Lessons from the Links, which was comprised of all the stories that I wrote in Golf Punk magazine. And of course, the artwork was already taken care of. Well, the great thing is that Golf Punk, because they really valued the fact that I was writing for them for free, as most of these stories were. Golf Digest paid, of course, and Golf Tips did as well, but a lot of the other magazines didn't. And one of the things that became very apparent to me is how few pros want to commit their time and their mental energy towards efforts that aren't paid efforts. Well, when you're thinking about this idea of leverage, it's all about doing something now that can pay off in the future. So I never really asked to get paid. I never cared if I got paid. If somebody asked me to write a story, I wrote it. I tried to do my best to make sure it was creative and interesting, and I always turned it in on time. In fact, when I did that, I always said, you know what? Anytime you need a story, I want you to call me because I guarantee it's going to be great, and I guarantee it's going to get to you in a timely manner. And all these publishers really started to appreciate that, the fact that they could count on somebody to come up with material as they needed it. Well, with Golf Punk, they really appreciated all of my efforts. And what they did in 2010 is they invited me to actually come and be part of a Golf Punk celebration at the British Open in St. Andrews, Scotland. And one of the things that they did to reward me for my efforts is they purchased 1,000 copies of my book, and they arranged a book signing right on the 18th hole during Sunday of the final round of the 2010 British Open. And I got these great pictures and video of myself and people standing in line with my book right there at St. Andrews, getting ready for me to sign it for them. And for me, that was really a highlight in my career. And as I started thinking about it, wow, you know what? It started with one tip in Golf Digest, which became a senior editor position with Golf Tips, which was leveraged into a senior editor position for Golf Punk, where those stories were leveraged into publishing my very own book, which was then leveraged into having this amazing experience at the British Open. And for a lot of this, again, I wasn't paid. But what I started to do was get a reputation as somebody who was relevant in the world of media. And that opened up so many doors that never would have happened if I wouldn't be persistent with some of these basic writing efforts. Well, as we all know, social media is a big part of what we do these days. And right at the inception of this whole idea of using YouTube to market yourself as a coach, I started to go ahead and post some videos. And back then I didn't realize what the impact would be long term. But I was intrigued. I was intrigued by the fact that I could post one golf swing and I could tag it appropriately to try and get some eyeballs on it. And within a 24-hour period, I could have hundreds of people that were actually paying attention to what I was doing. So what I did is I posted one video and I tagged it fixing your slice or something like that. And the next day I came back and it had over 100 views. So I said to myself, you know what if I committed to doing a video, or at least attempting to put together a video in my downtime between my golf lessons. I had a video camera there, I had a mic there. So between 9 o'clock and 9:30 when I had a gap between lessons, what if I tried to crank out a tip? What would that sound like? So I didn't put any pressure on myself to make it perfect. I just got in front of the camera and I started talking. And if I screwed it up, I didn't care. I would just turn it off. And if I had another gap later in the day, I would try again. And what I quickly realized was how hard it was to try and exude personality and be engaging and to sound like you have something organized to say when all you're doing is talking to a camera lens. It's a lot easier to do when you're talking to a group of people in a clinic or a group event. But when you're just talking to a camera lens, you start to really understand what it takes to look professional on camera. So I started trying to crank out one of these videos a couple of times a week, and I started posting them to YouTube, and I was tagging them. And all of a sudden, the views started going up into the thousands. And I also started to realize that I started getting better at delivering tips to the camera. And this was a cool thing to me, because a lot of times in life, unless you're in an acting class or in some kind of a class that's all about developing creative media, you don't take the time to develop these skills. But what I always understood was that the golf business is really the entertainment business. The only reason why golfers come to golf lessons is they want to get better. They want to improve their own level of fun and entertainment. The reason why people buy magazines or DVDs is because they want to be entertained. They want to be inspired. They want to learn how to do something new. So as an instructor, as a coach, you have to learn how to be an entertainer. You have to be able to deliver your message in a manner that inspires people to want to do more. And that's what I started to realize through these efforts with YouTube. So over time, I went from the hundreds to the thousands to the 100,000s. And now by the time you get this audio file, you can go to my YouTube channel and you'll realize that I'm over 4 million views. So now if you realize that leverage is all about being able to create traction for who you are and what you do, and you realize that with social media there aren't any more gatekeepers, meaning there's no television executive or radio producer or even magazine editor that says you can or can't be on TV, you can or can't post on the internet in terms of print or blogging, you can't be on the radio in terms of creating a podcast or not creating a podcast. Once you understand that, as an entertainer, as someone who's an expert that has something to say, once you understand that through these vehicles there are no limitations, and you take these ideas from coaching and you present them in an organized manner, through Facebook, through Twitter, through YouTube, through a blog, through a professional website, and all of a sudden you realize that the entire world is your audience. And that was a cool thing that happened for me. A lot of times when people look at their coaching business, they say, okay, I live in Tempe, Arizona, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the 25 miles that surround my lesson tee, and that's going to be my core market. Once I got really dialed in to this idea of creating media, through print, through social media, I realized that my target audience didn't have to be limited anymore. Everyone in the world that wants to play golf or learn golf or has a computer that searches golf lessons, golf tips, was a potential client of mine. And I really started to embrace this global approach towards marketing myself, which is really, really cool, because all of a sudden I started getting queries from people all over the world. People from China sending me emails, people from Korea, people from Australia, people getting on airplanes from Luxembourg and France and Germany and Spain, flying to my lesson tee in Arizona. And that was a really cool thing, because I realized that if people were committing themselves to get on airplanes, to find hotels, to rent rental cars, then why in the world should I be the cheapest thing on their trip? You know what I mean? They were there to see me, to have an experience. So now my rates didn't have to be handcuffed, so to speak, by my local market, my local clientele, because my market now was global. So my rates started to go up. The relationships that I had with my clients were the kinds of relationships I wanted to create, because people that were coming to see me knew about my coaching. They knew exactly what they were looking for. They were committed to learning. And the whole experience overall just started to shift for me, so that every lesson I gave was exactly the kind of lesson with exactly the kind of client that I wanted. And as entrepreneurs, of course, it's up to us to decide who our clients are. So if you want your clients to be ladies or new golfers or seniors or young juniors or elite juniors or people who are just interested in certain aspects such as sports psychology or fitness or putting, that really doesn't matter. That's up to you to decide. But you have to start thinking about, how can I use this idea of leverage to create my ideal client? And that's what I did. Well, a really cool thing started to happen here with these YouTube videos, and that's the fact that I felt like I got pretty good on camera. So I said to myself, you know what, if I'm getting all of this traction globally, if I have all these hits on YouTube and people commenting on these social media platforms, and also I have this leverage through these magazines, and maybe I need to create some products to get out to these people so that I can start making a little bit of money. So, in my opinion, video is king. If you're great at video, you've got to get in front of that camera all the time. If you're not great at it, it's something you should definitely try and hone your skills at. But I started thinking about, what could I do from a product perspective to get something out there? And of course, the logical idea at the time was to create an app. Well, I researched how to create apps and what the cost was, and at the time it was pretty darn expensive. And I realized that it wasn't in my budget to do so. So I decided to get a little bit resourceful, and I contacted the local college, and they had a film studies department. And guess what colleges have? Internship programs. So I actually hired an intern for absolutely free to shoot and produce the Jeff Ritter Golf Instructional app, which is now available on iTunes. It's a free download. It's 99 cents per video series. And it's been a really good thing for me. But it was all happened because I was able to leverage one thing on top of another. And now I was able to leverage my camera presence into producing a product that I was proud of that was really born from all that time I spent in front of YouTube. Well, once you do some video, people out there in the media, they start getting wind of it. And if you look at all these digital platforms, they'd rather have video tips more than they'd like to have print tips. So I started getting contacted by some production companies that were shooting a lot of video. And they started coming to Arizona. They started getting me on camera. And they loved the fact that I was able to deliver tips very quickly in a clean, organized fashion. And what I realized is that the easier I made their job, because of my ability to speak on camera, which came entirely from YouTube, the more they wanted to contact me. So I really became the go-to guy for a lot of magazines and blogs and radio stations and television programs because they wanted good creative content. And again, that was all leveraged from Golf Digest to Golf Tips to Golf Punk to YouTube to Facebook to Twitter to all these things that started to come together for me. Well, what I started to do is realize that in this life, if you don't ask, you don't get. And if I was good at producing media through all the practice that I had, then I need to start pushing this a little bit farther. So why should Butch Harmon and Hank Haney and David Lebeter, why should they be the only ones that get to promote products? The only ones that get to be on television on a regular basis, the only ones that have the ability to get paid, so to speak, for their contribution to creating enthusiasm for products. So what I did is I sent some of my videos to Ping, which was right here in Arizona. I knew the guys a little bit. I said, hey, by the way, I think I'm pretty good on camera. If you ever need someone to help promote your products, I'd do a great job for you. Well, not too long after that, Ping asked me to be their product spokesperson for their iPing app, which was a great thing for me. The iPing app has been very successful. It's gotten eyeballs, tons of hits all over the world. And again, that's been able to enhance my personal brand. Well, the iPing app, people saw it and they liked it. And now other companies are contacting me. People are contacting me now about creating infomercials for them. So this whole idea of leverage is all about seeing the big picture. It's all about being persistent. It's all about doing things that sometimes you don't get paid for. Because when you leverage one thing on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, you really put yourself in position to be the architect, so to speak, of your own destiny, to be the architect of your success. And one of the things I do is every week I set aside one entire day for creating new business. I'm not on the lesson tee. I'm thinking about what can I do today that's going to help me create more leverage for who I am, who I want to be, and the places that I want to go. So thinking like an entrepreneur, creating leverage and building upon it has probably been the number one thing that's led to my current position today. And it's probably the number one thing that will lead me to the places that I'm going in the future. So about 11 years ago, I was a golf instructor out here in Tempe, Arizona. I was standing on a grass lesson tee. I was lucky to have a place to teach. I had a pile of balls next to myself. And I said, boy, it'd be really great if I could just fill up my lesson book and try and make a decent living. Well, once I started getting a taste of leverage and how to use it, my viewpoint of who I was and what I wanted to be changed dramatically. What started off as a traditional lesson business or lesson model really turned into a multifaceted business model where I became a coach, an author, a motivational speaker, and a product spokesperson. And the people that I've met, the places I've gone, the opportunities that I've had both in media and out have become some of the most enjoyable experiences of my lifetime. So what I'll leave with you here is this idea of leverage. As you create your career, as you become the architect of your success, think about what you can do today that's going to lead to something bigger tomorrow. Think about how doing something for free can actually turn into something that can be monetized at a later point. think about how just practicing in front of a video camera can be leveraged into doing things like creating products or being on television, being on the golf channel. Things like that that are really exciting for coaches that give you more leverage to create more income from your in-person encounters and also from the products and services that you provide. So again, thank you so much for purchasing the 5 must-dos to grow your business deep into the black. Here at Square It Up, we're committed to helping you develop the tools to succeed on every level. So this is Jeff Ritter again. Thank you so much for being part of our project. Contact us at your leisure, and we look forward to being part of your success as you build your business into the future.